My name is Åge Nøst. I was born on a farm in Norway in Northern Europe. I got an education in agriculture and forestry from over there. But at the age of 25, I left Norway and came to the United States to go to flight school. I got a commercial pilot license with a single and multi-engine airplane and instrument flight instructor rating. I've logged over 10,000 hours of flight time, including just about 1,000 hours upside down teaching aerobatics. A partner and I owned a flight operation together for many years. I've basically been in business for myself all my life. Also hosted and produced 2 TV shows in Tucson, Arizona, and I have studied time travel. I've had some strange experiences with an electronic device that I have. This device was demonstrated in a BBC television TV documentary several years ago. I was there with several theoretical physicists, of which one was Michio Kaku. I'm going to give you a little different view of the world, the universe, and how we fit into it. Because not everything is the way it seems, and not everything we are told are so. I have found that UFOs are real because I have seen them. And now they are everywhere in the sky. Most pilots who have flown for 10, 20 years or more, if you get them to the side and talk to them heart to heart, most of them will admit that they have seen things in the sky that should not be there. If you really want to see a lot of UFOs, get your hands on a pair of 4th generation night vision goggles. And with that, you can see higher into the light spectrum than what your eyes can do. And you will see them all the time. Triangles, discs, odd-shaped ones, because they are there, right out of our field of sight. I have a saying: if all the evidence of UFOs and extraterrestrial beings visiting Earth on a regular basis has been taken into a court of law and presented before a judge and a jury, there would have been a hanging a long time ago. One thing that I ran into while I was flying, and it bothered me a little bit, was that every so often we got a barrel of fluoride. We had to transport that somewhere, and we had to fill out a hazardous material form. And when I looked on the barrel, it was yellow with black stripes diagonally across it. And it had skulls and bones on 4 sides of it. And it said on the barrel that if we even touched it with our hands, we had to wash our hands and call poison control immediately. And we were transporting this to the water departments of cities where we were taking it, for them to put this extremely dangerous neurotoxin into the drinking water. This is one of the most toxic substances on Earth. And they put it in your drinking water. Have you ever thought about who are we, what are we, and why are we here? Science tells us that matter and energy cannot be created from nothing. Then again, we have some of the sharpest people on the planet, theoretical physicists and Professor Stephen Hawking at Cambridge University in England, and most other theoretical physicists. They tell us that their equations on the blackboard using quantum physics show us that this universe is created from nothing. If this whole universe is created from nothing, and everything in it is created from nothing, and you are in this universe created from nothing, what are you? Could it be that everything around us and we, us, are nothing? Here's where the logic kicks in and tells us, no, wait a minute. I see stuff, so there has to be something. I agree. But there may not be anything real. Okay, there's only one thing that can do that, and that is mind-directed thought. Intelligently created patterns of thought. With other words, quantum physics is telling us that everything in our, what we call our life, is a mind-created illusion. Somewhat similar to a hologram. Only this is a non-physical, mind-projected hologram. Let me give you something else to think about. I'm a hypnotist. If I put you in a comfortable chair and talked to you for 15 minutes and told you that when you woke up, you would see an elephant standing in the room next to you. If I did my job right, when you woke up, you would see an elephant standing next to you. You could reach out and touch that elephant. The skin will feel perfectly solid to you and rough, just like it is. You could smell the elephant. Now, what happened to your real world? What is the difference? So, we live in a mind-created universe. And what we allow to enter and dwell in our mind the mostly determines what we will have in our life. Could it be that simple? Will mankind as a civilization survive? We have found writings and artifacts dating back thousands, tens of thousands. These are million-year-old man-made artifacts. History books don't talk about that much, do they? And all the societies that created these artifacts, the question is, are we next? It looks to me, and most other reasonable thinking people, that we are allowing the people of influence and power to do everything they can to extinguish life on earth at the altar of profit and directives from above. Most cities are putting rat poison in your water. Fluoride is the active ingredient in most rat poisons. They are spraying us from the air with neurotoxins, barium chloride, nanoparticled aluminum, cancer microbes and viruses in those chemtrails that we see in the sky all the time. It looks like someone is terraforming Earth for another species, one that may not need oxygen. So what are we going to do to stop the destruction of the planet? I have a metaphor. Remember the definition of insanity? That is doing the same thing over again, over again, over again, over again, expecting different results. What are we doing to change it? Whatever we're doing is not working. If we do nothing different, Earth will be inhabitable in a couple of decades. We must make up to the fact that no problem can be solved by people having the same mindset as the people who created the problem. And that's not me saying that. That was Albert Einstein. Eugenics in America Yes, it is here. Did you know America had a compulsory sterilization program in over 30 states? Between 1934 and 1945, over 350,000 forced sterilization were done to disabled and mentally disadvantaged people in America. The program was not cancelled. It just went underground, and it has been expanded. Let me give you a view of what it looks like to me. And there are many who agrees with me. In 1994, the World Population Summit in Cairo, Egypt, they had some 160 nations who participated. They agreed that the world population is out of control and it must be stopped because the world is running out of resources. There was an agreement by a number of nations that allowing 800 million people to remain would be ideal. And that number must be met by 2030. That's only 13 years from now. And then let's look at the Georgia Guidestones. It is a granite monument erected in 1980 in Elbert County, Georgia, in the United States. It has 10 guidelines for mankind, and it is inscribed on the structure in 8 modern languages and a shorter message at the top of the structure in 4 ancient languages. One of them is Babylonian, there was Old Greek, in Sanskrit, and also in Egyptian hieroglyphics. But the trick is no one knows who is responsible for having it done. There was one guy that ordered it done and paid for it and commissioned it and so on, and he gave them his name, but we found out that that was not his name and he has disappeared. No one knows where it came from. It says to reduce the population on Earth to 500 million. That means getting rid of 90% of all people on Earth. How are they supposed to do that? They also speak of a world criminal court, which is already there in Europe, but just that the United States has not signed on to it yet. They also speak of a one world government. And they're telling us what they have planned for us, but we're not listening. We need to start listening to what the cabal is telling us. And we need to quit listening to what they tell us on TV, because that is not what we should be listening to. Here is the key to why all this is happening. We are told by futurists and scientists that 20 to 30 years from now, over half of the jobs in the world will be done by robots. What are they going to do with all the people? See, governments and industrial complexes in different countries and nations, they do not need the people anymore. We need to think. We cannot outfight this enemy, but we can outthink him. We need to educate people around us, join minds with people of like mind to create a future that we want. Start visualizing good things in the future and put effort behind it. Don't just sit there. It can be done. How can we access this universal mind that is around us? So with the newer understanding of science now, in quantum physics and spiritual science is what I call it, we find we live in a mind-created universe We have the whole universal mind all around us and in us, but nobody taught us how to use it. I have an analogy. If we took Mr. Average or Mrs. Average right off the street, it could be an accountant, a lawyer, a clerk at 7-Eleven, absolutely anything, and put them in the left seat, that is the captain's seats, on a Boeing 747, and told them, let's go flying. They may be smart people, but they would not have a clue. It would take them probably 20 minutes just to find the electrical master switch. Now, if we gave that person a year's worth of training in that airplane, and it would take a year, and then we put them back in that captain's chair again and said, let's go flying. Guess what? They could take us flying. It is the same thing with the mind. We were never taught how to use it. We do not understand the phenomenal capacity it has available to us. And that is what I teach in my book, how to use this mind and how to tap into the universal consciousness for knowledge and resources. Most awakened people know we have a well-oiled machine running the controlled society we dwell in. What the people pulling the string behind the curtain of this controlled society fear the most are educated people of higher consciousness, capable of independent thinking. You see, we were born with a photographic memory, and our brain is a sponge for information when we're small. 20-some years ago, I traveled around the country in the United States teaching a mind development course now called ZOX Pro Training. That's ZOX Pro Training. It was tested in the school system in Phoenix, Arizona, on 7 or 8 fledgling students, D&F students. And after going through the course, they jumped straight to A and B students, because we taught them how to organize their mind and open up a channel with a two-way flow of information from the conscious mind into the subconscious mind and back again. What if kids were taught this in school? We would have mental giants with PhDs by the time they were 14. Of course, it will be a little early for the workforce, but they could go and get a second PhD and a third, specialized knowledge. So by the time they're 20, 22 years old, ready to start going to work, they have a phenomenal knowledge. This is what the mind can do. And this kind of knowledge is fatal to the puppeteers of the controlled society. I only wish there were more of us. What if the Phoenix Lights were not what most people think they were at all? On March 13, 1997, there was an incredible thing that happened over Arizona. In the late evening, there was a large boomerang-shaped set of lights that slowly drifted or flew over Phoenix, Arizona, headed south towards Tucson, and disappeared. This is a well-publicized and discussed incident, and most people have an opinion on it. And it usually is, it was an alien spacecraft. Well, it could be, but there's another thought, that what if it was a hologram? I know this is a strange thing to even say, because it was over a mile wide. And this thing flew over at night. No problem. The American government has been playing with holograms since the 1960s or before. They have an ongoing project that's called Operation Bluebeam. It involves creating holographic images in the sky that they want the public to believe is real. They tested the very first that we know of, in 1962 over the Havana harbor in Cuba, by projecting an image of Mother Mary over Havana. They were hoping that the people will turn on their godless government and overthrow them. Well, that didn't happen. That was 55 years ago. What in the world should we expect them to be able to do today with the holograms that they have developed now? One of the scenarios already worked out and ready to go within Project Bluebeam is a fake alien invasion with thousands of flying discs in the sky and a few real ones in between that will attack people and installations on the ground so that they can create more fear. This is all created for the purpose of scaring the people into accepting a tyrannical, dictatorial, one-world government. So if you see an alien invasion coming, they are not your friends. Now the second batch of aliens, or the second wave of them, the second form, they should be your friends, because that is what I saw in my download that I had. You see, we have been screaming for disclosure for so long. The cabal that is running the show here, they're going to give it to us, but it will not be the truth. There will be bits and pieces of truth in between, but they will never tell us anything, so they cannot be able to control us and profit from us still. That will not happen. The thing about this planned projected Bluebeam alien invasion is that it also carries voice with it. It will sound like God is speaking to you. And the dumbed down religious masses, they will believe it. This is an old technology dating back to 1973 or possibly even before. And there are several patents on it. Some of them in 73, some in 1989. And this technology is called voice to skull and has a UN patent. Check that one out. Go to the Patent Bureau's website and punch that in and see what comes up. And that one is from 1989. There's another patent. See, they have amplifications of voice laid onto microwaves, and they beam that to your head. And you hear voices in your head. And in these inventions, the patents here, they talk about beaming this from space. Think about that. If this technology is told to the people, they're going to think God is talking to them. We are hearing terrorists saying they heard voices in their head to go and do things. Where do you think that come from? So why could not the Phoenix Light be just that? A hologram being tested. Do you know what meditation is? Meditation is the gateway to higher consciousness and understanding the universe and the spiritual world. It is almost a must for someone to gain higher consciousness. I have been meditating since I was about 20. I've been trying to develop my mind to the absolute best I know how. Meditation and quiet contemplation, or as the Christians call it, be still, is the gateway to the universe within you, where all the magic is. You see, the universal mind is what theoretical physicists are tapping into when they sit and stare at equations on the blackboard. They're looking for answers, for wisdom, brilliant solutions and knowledge to solve the missing pieces of their equations. Within that altered state, that's where the magic is, and that's the gate to the universal mind and the mind within. About 4.5 years ago, I had an incredible experience. I was sitting in meditation. My eyes were closed and my mind mostly emptied out, thinking about nothing, with the doors wide open to receive knowledge, information, wisdom, brilliant ideas from the universal consciousness behind it all. I was open for anything. Then I started to see flashes of light coming from the periphery of my field of vision, even behind closed eyes. And they went towards the center, straight in front of me. And they started building into a bright white light in front of me. And that light was growing. And then it started going away, and I saw things in it. These things in the light took over, and the light went away. What I saw in there was a boiling soup of things, concept, floating ideas, creations, inventions, technologies, past, present, and future. And it was all happening right there and now. This is hard to wrap our heads around because we normally think in linear time. We cannot think in past, present, and future at the same time. And there is no adequate language to explain this. Everything in the universe was explained to me, both in concept and detail, in about 5 minutes or so. It took about 10 seconds or less to build it up so it was sitting there for me to see. And then it stopped, and it was there for me to observe it. After a few minutes, I started slowly fading. It probably took minutes, 10 minutes or so for it to just go away, even though after that there was a good memory of it. I have still a lot of that memory with me. A lot of it I have written down, and I realized very quickly that this must not be lost. So right after this incident, I grabbed a pen and a paper and I started writing, and I wrote for about 3 days, plus or minus what I had to do from time to time. And much of the technical details of the information I got, it is still with me. And some of it was placed in the future. The world doesn't seem to be ready for it yet. Some of the truth of the universe and the mechanics of how it works and would make it function with us in it, I wrote for 3 days, plus or minus things that I had to do during the day, work and so on. Much of the technical details of the information I got, the world does not seem to be ready for it yet, and the mechanics of it will make me look like a raving idiot if I was to talk about all of that now. But then again, that's okay. Now, having a download like this, it is not unique to me. It's nothing special. I'm nothing special that way, because there are many people throughout history that has had this. Some of the more people that you would know, Nikola Tesla had this experience. He said one time, "I saw the past, present, and the future at the same time." So he obviously had one of these experiences. Newton had it. Many artists and painters, they talk about having these kinds of experiences. I read about a mathematician in France about 120 years ago. He had a download and wrote equations for 2 days afterwards. And there's several others that I've heard of that has had it. So this is nothing special to me. And there is a method for creating a state of mind where you can get these downloads of universal information. And that is what I teach in my book, to set your mind right so you can have these kinds of experiences from the universal consciousness. We live in a strange world. The world we think we live in is not the real world. Even just within our physical existence, we live in a total, tyrannical, lied to, brutalized, locked down, industrialized, and governmentally imposed prison. And most of us don't even know it. There is no freedom anymore. In Tucson, Arizona, it is illegal to feed the homeless people. But if you get a permit from the government, then it's okay. There is no privacy anymore. Every website you visit, every government building you visit, every telephone, text, and telephone call you make, it's intercepted and recorded for future use to profile you or to use it against you if they feel they want to. My question to everybody is, how did we get so stupid that we allowed them to do this? Government is instituted to serve the people. That is what most written constitutions all across the world say. What has happened to us? There is something called the Mastermind Principle. This is the principle we have to start taking advantage of in order to straighten out this situation we've gotten ourselves into here on Earth. What we have allowed to be imposed on us is almost non-describable. But by us, we are living with this. Because somewhere in our mental fabric, we are the ones that allowed this to be created in our existence. Very few people understand the Mastermind Principle and the power that dwells within it. The Mastermind Principle is best described as when two or more minds are united in harmony. They create a third mind, which has the potential mind power of the two or more of them multiplied by each other. You see, when 10 people get together and intend and think on the same thing to solve a common problem or pursue a common goal, they have the combined mind power of 100 people. If 1,000 people get together and join their minds to solve problems or create something, you have a mind power of 1,000,000 people. This is powerful. Let me give you an example of what the Mastermind Principle can do. 20-some years ago, Art Bell, on his nightly radio show, Coast to Coast AM Live, he did an experiment. He wanted to help the people in Texas because there had been no rain in the state for 3 months. There were severe droughts, brush fires everywhere, cattle were dying all over the place, and towns were running out of water. And there were no rain in sight. Art Bell now, he had 5 to 20 million listeners every night, depending on the guest. And he asked all of his guests to visualize rain over Texas. I was listening that night, and we all did. Later that night and the next day, there were thunderstorms all over Texas. Now this put out the brush fires. There was water again for the cattle. And the weather forecasters, they admitted it. They came out and told the people they were totally dumbfounded because nowhere in the computer models were there any sign of moisture that could create any kind of rain. But it happened. They did not understand how it could happen, but I did. This is the power of the Mastermind Principle. This principle can be used just as a family unit, by a church, by a community, by a listening audience on a radio show, or by a state or a nation, or we, the people, all together across the globe. If we join minds like this, we can solve any challenge that we are up against. So when you read my book, you will know how to do some of these amazing things. Wouldn't it be fun to have a UFO detector? When I was about 12 years old or so, I was pondering how UFOs could stay afloat in the air when they just came flying by. I came down to think that it had to have something that could reverse or redirect the gravity to keep them afloat. Either way, I thought it had to have something to do with electromagnetics. I think it could possibly create ripples in the Earth's magnetic field and affect a compass needle. When a ship floats through the air, it creates ripples, and they will wiggle and slowly turn a compass needle. That is what gave me the idea to build this UFO detector around a compass. After I activated this UFO detector, I heard it go off 3 times. My mom heard it go off several times more, but she didn't know what to do, so I didn't get to see it those times. When I heard it go off, I grabbed my binoculars and ran outside. One time I didn't see anything, but 2 other times I did see something, and it couldn't be explained by Newtonian physics. I hope people can look at this drawing and they can make their own UFO detector, because that will be fun to play with, especially after the bell goes off. I have seen them. UFOs are real. You know, I am a commercial pilot, and flying as much as I have done, with over 10,000 hours of logged flight time, you know, you see stuff that cannot be explained. One time, I was on a training flight with a student in northern Nebraska in the United States. I had a UFO fly right underneath my airplane, about 400 feet, coming in from the right, going right underneath on off to the left behind me. It was not all that fast, probably about the same speed that I was doing, about 150 miles an hour. It was not very big either, maybe around 20 feet across. And there was a row of windows on the side of it. Also, I was on an air ambulance flight in a King Air, returning back to Omaha, Nebraska with 2 nurses in the back and a patient. I had a co-pilot, and we were going in and out of the clouds probably about 23,000 feet. Suddenly we could see a short pencil-like looking craft coming out of the corner of our field of vision on the left, going straight in front of us and disappearing off to the right. Probably around 4 to 6 miles ahead of us. It was going extremely fast. It was going so fast it could be hard to keep our eyes on it. After it was gone, we just sat there, numb, looking straight ahead. I remember looking over at the co-pilot, and he was looking over at me, and I asked him, "Did you see that?" He just stared at me, didn't say anything, and then he looked forward, said nothing. You know, after I got on the ground, I brought it up one more time. He refused to talk about it. Of course, I discovered that, you know, he was a born-again Christian, and for them, you know, these kinds of things, they're demons, so I understand why he would not talk about it. How can we create a future that we like? Everybody would like to know what the future is going to be like, right? Well, maybe not everybody, but close to it. I like to tell you what the future can be like. Remember, quantum physics is showing us that we live in a mind-created universe. Everything we see, hear, do, and experience starts in the mind. And then it is projected outwards by our mind into our environment around us. Somewhat similar to a hologram. And we are part of this hologram, and we are in it. We are the star actor in this holographic movie we are living. You see, holograms can appear very real. Holograms has been around since the early 1960s. 50, 60 years later, we have holograms now that seems to be self-initiating and thinking on their own. This universe we have created and are living in here as a hologram have had, there's some argument about the number, but some 14.7 billion years to perfect itself. Do you think it could be slightly more effective and more believable than the ones that we are experimenting with after 60 years in the laboratories? Yeah, I think so. So it becomes obvious that not only the brain but the mind creates everything we experience around us. What we allow to dwell in our mind is mostly what we're going to have in our life, because that creates our life. If you walk around worrying about war breaking out in the Middle East, North Korea bombing us, the economy, and look in your checkbook and you see $13.21 and wonder where the next rent check is coming from, yeah, you may have some interesting times ahead. But if you do not accept that, quit watching fake news and go within yourself and program your future, as I explain in the book how to do, and then put effort behind it, you can have a very different life. It is always good to know who the enemy is, because you create your environment. Some of the environment you create now, some of the environment you created in the past, and you're bringing it with you. You made some agreements also before you came here. You made those agreements to go through and learn certain things, to have learning experience. So if you create a negative environment with much fear in it, you are your own enemy. Quantum physics also tells us that we may have more than one timeline going into the future. Pick the one with the good stuff in it, because you can design and create that future timeline before you have to go and live it. Let's talk a little bit about how this hologram works. Quantum physics is telling us that in the physical existence there is no randomness or choice, because the physical is only the projection. All changes to the physical is done outside of the physical at the projector, or the computer behind the projector, which is the mind. That does not mean that we have no choice in our existence, a choice to make better decisions. We do have a choice, but where the choices are made is not in the physical. Those decisions are done at the source, at the mind behind the projector of the hologram we think we are living. It's not in the physical those decisions are made. We don't see that because it happens at the same time. Remember, in physical we have this time issue. It is only played out in the physical, within the hologram. So it becomes very apparent again that what we allow to dwell in our mind is very important, and that is what decides what we are going to do and live through. Here's what you can do to create the future you want. First of all, I suggest to read the book because it gets very much into detail. Before you have to live it, you can actually create it in your mind. I had to learn this the hard way. If you do not do anything different or visualize and intend for something different in your life, you will have a future pretty much the same as you have now. So if you want something totally different to enter your life, mentally, visually, and intend for something spiritual in your future, then do just that. put physical, emotional, and spiritual effort behind it. Now, if you are totally happy with what you have right now, everything is wonderful, don't change a thing. It's working for you, whatever you're doing. Now, if you do these things, you can have something very different and very special in your future. When you reach into the quantum to create like this, you must use the right language. It is not one of words. It is one of emotion, feelings, intention, vivid, colorful pictures, gratitude for what we have, and also gratitude for what we have not received yet. And the biggest one of all things to put into this language is love. Now, this is what we can do to create something in the future. Visualize the future you want to have and be specific in it with emotion, vivid, colorful pictures, intention, love, and attach this picture that you have created to a time-coded event in the future. Not just a date. Dates are worthless to the universe. But rather something like a birthday party where everything you see around you is filled with love and happiness. And we are all standing around toasting to this new thing that you visualized into existence and created. Visualize something that is good for more than one person. Don't be selfish. Should be at least 3 people. There's something in universal law about that. At least 3 people or more. Many more, the better. When you place it into the future like this, and then go visit it in your mind every day, many times a day, build on it, fill it with detail, love, color, other people enjoying it with you, and then work and do everything possible you can do to help make it happen. By going back and forth to this like this, you are laying down attractor strings to this thing in the future. And you will be pulled up this timeline by these attractor strings to this thing in the future that you have created in your mind. And when the time for that special birthday party comes, the 2 present moments, the present moment you've been carrying with you, that meet the present moment of the future that you have created in your mind. And the 2 locations joined, and you walk into it, and it is yours. When it comes to designing the future in your mind before you have to go and live it, we must remember we live in a mind-created universe. If a large number of people join minds under the Mastermind Principle and think of one specific thing, put effort behind it like we talked about, there is a much bigger chance of this thing happening. That's why families should have a family meeting. When they go into meditation and build on something that the family want together. Communities do it, churches can do it. So we as a people must concentrate on good things rather than the negative garbage that we get by turning the TV on and all these things that came floating around. And we need to join our minds, our hearts, and our hands together to create the most awesome, constructive, extraordinary, harmonious, passionate, and truly beautiful experiences imaginable. And we can do that. Is somebody trying to kill us off? The AIDS virus was created in a laboratory and released on the people. Dr. Strecker, you may have heard of the Strecker Memorandum on the AIDS virus. Veterinarians, they found that there were genetic material from two different animals, cows and sheep, Visna, to create an animal wasting disease in humans in 1984. But he had already created the virus in 1971 because he wrote a paper on it. The patent papers of 1984 were an identical copy of the paper he wrote in 1971. But right after he got the patent, he announced to the world that we have a new virus that we have to find a cure for and spend a lot of money on. It always comes back to the money, doesn't it? The evidence for the origin of AIDS is clear. AIDS is a designer byproduct of the US Special Virus Program, which ran from 1962 to 1978. It was added into vaccine inoculations in Africa, Haiti, San Francisco, especially in the gay community in San Francisco, and also in Manhattan, New York. And there were several other places where they distributed the AIDS virus through vaccines to the people. And of course, shortly after that, the whole world was overwhelmed with this brand new killer disease, AIDS. Of course, now we know the genetic of AIDS, and HIV is a modified version of another virus compatible, and it's a particle where they spliced in a segment of the chromosome of an animal wasting disease to create this new disease, Visna. Are these crazy people? No, there's a plan, and they're following the plan. Likewise, the Center of Disease Control, that's the CDC, they hold the patent on the Ebola virus. And they have a cure for the Ebola virus, but it has not been communicated to the people, which is an altered and renewed patent. It was applied for in 2010 and granted in 2014 to the name of Jonathan S. Towner. Now, I am a patent holder, and I know the only reason anybody would patent something is so they can protect it from infringement of other people using your intellectual property to make money on it. Is immortality possible? Is even reversing the aging process possible? They're really good stuff, and the phenomenal world-changing advances in science have been kept from us. Did you know that the Nobel Prize was given for the discovery of an enzyme that reverses the aging process? And no one seems to know about it. We can understand what would happen to Social Security and all the pension programs if people quit dying, but it does not have to be bad. If people are healthy, they live longer, they produce and contribute longer, and they support the economy, they pay taxes. In 2009, there were 3 doctors who got the Nobel Prize for discovering an enzyme called telomerase. This enzyme reverses the aging process, and by doing that, all age-related diseases begin to go away. You see, science has found your cells in your body is replicating themselves. And the end of the telomeres at the end of the chromosomes are becoming shorter every time. After decades, the telomeres at the end of the chromosomes are so short they can no longer keep the end of the chromosomes together, and the chromosomes start fraying, and the cells are no longer able to replicate themselves. You get stuck with old cells in the body, and you start aging, and eventually you will die. If we had enough of this enzyme, telomerase, in your body, it would stop the telomeres from shortening. In fact, if we had enough of it, the telomeres would lengthen to their young, healthy state again. Just for the fun of it, go to the Nobel Committee's website, go to 2009, scroll down to medical submissions, and read the papers. You're going to enjoy it. There are 3 ways to stop the aging process. One of them is get the enzyme telomerase and take it. It's not that easy, and it could set you back as of this anyway, and now about $400 a month. But you can also take the right nutritional supplements that will help the body to make its own telomerase. This is the best one, and that's the one I'm doing. And the third way to do this, to reverse the aging process, is to get your mind right. Understand what aging is and the process of it. And with epigenetics, mind conditioning, you can stop the aging process. Epigenetics is a new medical philosophy that basically just tells you that you can change the body with the way you're thinking. I found a guy. He was 256 years old. It is obvious that mankind has the capability of old age. I found this man in Saudi Arabia who died at the age of 154. That was in 2013. He had 10 wives, 180 children, and a whole bunch of grandchildren. And the government verified his age. And then I found this Chinese herbalist. He was a healer. He was also a martial art instructor for the army in China. His name was Li Qing Yuan, and he died at the age of 256 from an accident, not from old age. The government also verified his age. In 1930, the New York Times published an official Chinese document confirming his age. And he told the people, "My thoughts and my food keep me young." He did not tell a lot of people everything he did in order to live so long, but many of his martial arts students, they also became very old. I did some digging and I found what he ate. He mostly ate Chinese herbs and berries. And of course, food alone may not possibly keep you to live that long. We need youth thinking. We need mental and physical exercise and discipline. The combination of exercise and food and the rest of what I believe we need to do. The 256-year-old man did not live like we do, nor did he eat what we do. Some of the things he ate are astragalus root, and he took it in the large amounts. Wild ginseng, ling shi, shou wu, gotu kola, and also jiaogulan herb, which in China is called the immortality herb. And then he ate lots of goji berries. And in his mind, he knew he could never die. So the question is then, what is time? Actually, up to now, there's been no scientific evidence that time even exists. But quantum physics is starting to speak of it in a different way. What we see around us and what is happening in the past is only an effect of something that might exist. Then there's another question. How can we have an effect off of something that does not exist? Yes, we can. Remember, the mind created universe. So everything we experience around us, from the past to present and projecting into the future, is only a mind-created holographic experience. An experience with us injecting ourselves into it as the star holographic movie star. And we think we are living, therefore we are living, right? There are 3 books which explain the scientific experiments that explain this. And one of them is The Field and the Intention Experiment by Lynn McTaggart. Another one is Entangled Minds by scientific researchers Dean Radin. And of course, Spiritual Science, Higher Conscious Thinking, and How to Access the Universal Consciousness, written by me. These books show proof that by scientific experiments that we can respond to an unknown future event before the event happens. How can that be? If time only goes in one direction, if that was the case, the effects of that future event cannot reach back into the past and give a reaction. Newtonian physics forbid it. And here's the proof that time and the world we are living in is not what it looks like. Besides my own experience in time travel, which I explain in my book, there are experiments which throw traditional thinking on time right out the window. In Spontaneous Evolution, Bruce Lipton and Steve Bhaerman, they speak of scientific experiments where the subjects are hooked up to electronic or electric biometric sensors which would register physical and emotional reactions to visual stimuli. The subjects are shown a succession of pictures as slide images. Most of these pictures, they were pleasant, they were calming, like kittens and flowers and babies and green fields and stuff like that, except for about 3% of the pictures. There were gruesome violence, rape, disgusting pictures. These pictures were randomly placed into the stream of slides shown to the subjects. The amazing thing is that when the subject expressed an emotional response to the violent and disturbing pictures a few seconds before the pictures were shown to them. How could that be? There were only 3% of the pictures. There are many experiments like this that show a present reaction to a future event that has not happened yet, and you would not know it was going to happen. It boggles the mind when you think about this. And it throws traditional thinking of time in a trash can. Because the picture they had not seen yet reached into the past and gave a reaction. What will the future be like? I will guarantee you, 50 years from now, you will have robotic people, androids, walking down the street next to you, and you will never know it. Single guys will have a robotic housekeeper and a bed partner. The androids will do all the housework for you, go to meetings for you, do your paperwork for you, do all hard labor. Of course, we wouldn't need them because it probably would not be that many people. No one would drive cars anymore. This is all automatic now with driverless cars. Of course, if you're a real car buff, I'm sure you're going to find a way to get on the road somehow to try it out. And we will even have flying cars. We will also have airliners flying with no pilots in them. The pharmaceutical companies are for the most done away with in their present form. And instead of it, corrupt disease management system disguised as a healthcare system we have now, there will be a healing and wellness system which everybody takes part of. And everybody produces and contributes to society in their own way. Life expectancy is very high. The European Union has collapsed, and all member states are independent, but acting under the same voluntary rules that is a lot more humane than they are now. And Europe is thriving. The extraterrestrials are back and working with us on many different projects. When disclosure happens, not long from now, we are first introduced to what is under the ice in Antarctica. The first wave of aliens that we will see are not our friends. They are here to enslave us, together with the Catholic Church and governments, even more so than we are already, with a chip under the skin and mandatory vaccinations so they can reduce the population on Earth. That is the agenda. The second wave of aliens, actually not a wave so much, but maybe the second kind of them that is coming, those will be our friends, because they come here to help. The Muslim disease trying to conquer Europe right now has been overcome. They finally discovered that a large number of the refugees were terrorist warriors on a mission to destroy and conquer, and they were expelled or done away with. The United States, the corporation, formed in England in 1871, no longer exists. After a scary short time, there was an economic revolution that changed the United States to actually becoming a more friendly place to live. And the United States of America is thriving again. Now, this is what I saw in my download. It is definitely in one of the timelines, and I plan to be in that timeline. If you want any of this, then concentrate on these things. Visualize them. Put the Mastermind Principle to work, and you will have a good chance to stay in the timeline I am, where things will be okay, and not stray off into another timeline where things are different. Because you create your own timeline into the future, and not all of them have wonderful things in it. In my book, I explain how to stay in the timeline that you want to have happen in the future. What is on the moon? We have a long track record of observing things and artifacts on the moon. Already back on November 12, 1671, astronomer Cassini reported on seeing a small whitish cloud on the moon. On May 18, 1787, an astronomer, Halley, and also another astronomer, de Lovell, he reported seeing bright lights in the bottom of craters on the moon. On July 4th, 1881, two pyramidal structures, they were observed on the moon's edge, and a short time after they just disappeared. On September 25, 1955, there were observed bright flashing lights from the edge of a crater in Taurus. And it is really conspicuous that this is the exact location Apollo 17 was sent to. What do you think they were looking for? There are thousands of observations by career astronomers and hobby astronomers alike, of apparent structures and moving lights and shadows and UFOs in orbit around the moon. All kinds of things like this has been observed for a long time, all the way back to the time when they invented the telescope. Someone is on the moon. We are on the moon. But that is our breakaway civilization, financed and built by the $9 trillion missing from the American military budget. Joseph F. Blumrich, a leading engineer at Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama, he got access to much of the generally available and classified information of activity on the moon and UFOs in orbit around Earth and other things. He studied it for 18 months, and he made an official statement. This is powerful. He said, "The moon and Earth are and have been visited on a regular basis by extraterrestrials." In 1954, John O'Neill, a former science editor for the New York Herald Tribune, he discovered a 12-mile-long bridge-like structure across a crater in the Sea of Crisis. And this bridge was later confirmed by astronomers. I have a picture of a NASA print on my website of green vegetation on the bottom of a few craters on the moon. Green vegetation? But there's no air up there, we are told. Looks like there is. If you really want to know what is on the moon, write to NASA under the Freedom of Information Act and ask for a study called Chronological Catalog of Lunar Events. It was made by NASA, and of course they spell it out. But it was classified and never published. From what I understand, it is declassified now and it can be had. This is an interesting one if you can get your hands on it. You can go onto my website and scroll down into the blogs to secrets NASA does not want us to know about the moon. This is a very interesting piece that I wrote about a year ago. It covers an awful lot of what is seen on the moon and what it is on the moon. When the testing of the moon rocks, when they were first done, they found that the moon was 500 million years older than Earth. And the rock samples are totally different than rocks on Earth. So the moon was not even formed in the same cloud of dust and gas as Earth was. Obviously, it was moved here, or possibly flown here and parked. In fact, the moon should not even be there. We know how big the moon is. We know its weight. We know how big the Earth is. And we know its weight and gravitational force. We know how fast the moon is moving around Earth and the centrifugal force created by that rotation around Earth. Here's the problem. The moon is too big, too heavy, and going too fast to be able to hold orbit at the distance it is. Now, if it is hollow, then it would make perfect sense to see it where it is. That and other reasons, that is why I am always saying that the moon is hollow and it was parked in orbit. And there is something inside of the moon because we can see it. There are several holes in the surface going into the moon. And there's activity in the area of those holes. Many of the Russian scientists, they actually agree with me on this one. The winner of the war always writes history. Half of what you read in the history books may not be true. If history was told accurately, it would read as a mystery book or a science fiction manual, because over half of what we are told and taught in schools and colleges and read in the history books are lies. And we do not know which half it is. There's a piece of history. It is unlikely that you've heard about it unless you are of Norse or Viking lineage. We're told that Columbus discovered America, right? But there were Native Americans there. Hello? And then, in about the year 1000 to about 1015, a Norse Viking named Leif Erikson, he sailed from Norway, and he first went to Iceland, replenished the ship. Then he went to Greenland and replenished the ships again. And then he headed straight west and he found Vinland, or Wineland is what he called it. How do we know this? Well, it is written up in an old manuscript I'm calling The History of the Vikings. It is a book written by Snorre Sturlason. He was born in 1179 and was an Icelandic historian. We have also found Viking longships buried in the silt and the clay in Maine, and also another one I know of that was found outside of St. Louis, Missouri in the riverbed. So yeah, the Vikings got around. The Vikings also started populating Greenland in about the year 900 or so, possibly earlier. And they were there until about 1400. Then it got too cold for them in that mini ice age that we had about that time. They ran out of wood and oil for their lamps, could not make any more ships, and they couldn't stay warm, so many of them died. When they were talking to the Eskimos kept telling them, go to the north, there is warm weather up there. From the last messages that were left, the last Vikings that was there, they wrote a message stating that they were going to the north because there were warm weather up north. That one is hard to believe too, because going to the north in Greenland, wouldn't that get colder? Well, there are some things that may explain why. The Arctic fox migrate to the north in the winter on Greenland. And then there are these two books written by Fridtjof Nansen. He was the first guy to make it to the North Pole, you know, and he was a Norwegian. These two books are written in Norwegian and slightly right after the word 1900. I have the books, and I have read them years and years ago. He wrote that when he was getting close to the pole, he found dead bees on the ice. Dead bees on the ice, close to 1,000 miles to the closest flower or anywhere the bees could live? That don't make sense. Also, he found yellow patches of flower pollen on the ice. There was fine drifting sand on the ice. This may go along with some of the pictures I have on my website. One of them is a NASA print taken by the ESA-7 satellite, taken in a stationary polar orbit, 32,000 miles up above the North Pole, taking a picture straight down. And it shows an 800-mile wide hole right around the North Pole. So in other words, there is no North Pole. And that goes along with the letters Nansen wrote to people, and is saying that he could not find anything further north than 83 degrees. He went back and forth, and that was it. That was the furthest north he could get. So he declared it to be the North Pole because his instrument had to be faulty. Well, this is a very unpopular concept because everybody wants to be the first. We need to know where the North Pole is, so let's look at the pictures. Whenever we see NASA now showing a picture of the polar region, it automatically slides a sheet of ice over to cover it. What would I tell the president if I could speak with him? If I was standing in front of the president and could tell him one thing and ask him a question, I would say, you have the power and the opportunity to save the country from collapse. So do not give in to all the influence and the advice you get from the people that you surround yourself with who profits from the problem. Seek outside advice also from the people that do not profit from the problem. I would also ask him, why not release all the classified UFO files and movies and documents that the US government have? The people are ready. We're waiting for this, and the people will support you in it. When you get ready to ask for it, and you are told, nope, fire everybody that stands in your way until you get down to the guy that is holding the key to the file cabinet with everything in it, and that guy should be the one that needs a job. He will give it to you. Why not you be the one who released the world from this bondage of cosmic Watergate? That should be in your legacy. What I would tell the world, if I could speak to the whole world, if I could give a message to the whole world and they were listening, I would say, look within yourself for the power. Learn who you are, what you are, and what you can do. You are not what you think you are, and you have capabilities far beyond what you think you can do. The power is not in your hands and not in your guns. That is force exerted by the ones who have physical power. People in government, they know who they are and know what they can do. And since you do not object much, they keep doing. You keep electing the same corrupt people over and over again into government. How stupid is that? Okay, so there are some good ones coming in there also. Read about Gandhi in India. Study him. Get in his mind. And when you do, a leader will arise among you, one that will bring you from bondage. It is much better to outthink the enemy than outfighting him, because they usually have more and bigger guns than you do. Let's talk about the Mer people. The Mer people I'm talking about live in the ocean. We've all heard about the mermaids, and of course, wherever there are mermaids, there has to be mermen. We don't hear about those very often, but they are kind of thrown in with the mermaids. The notion that there are people living in the ocean are highly contested. It doesn't make sense, because we have to think of people as us. We exclude possibly that they may have other capabilities we do. But the ones who take the time to do the research, they will find all kinds of evidence for the existence of mermaids and mer people. There are many pictures, videos, skeletons, mummified bodies found. Some are fake, but the real ones, they will stand up to scrutiny of X-rays and forensic investigation. And there are many that has done that. The X-ray, they would show a clear bone structure under the skin and under the muscles. Now that is evidence. You can see several of them on my website in the picture gallery. And in my blog you will find a very good close-up video of one mermaid that was washed up after a hurricane in 2015. And this particular one was written up in the local newspaper, and after that the story died. Mermaids and mer people, they are not a product of natural selection, but genetic manipulation. In fact, the Atlanteans had a very advanced technology and started experimenting with genetic engineering to be able to live underwater after their first disaster when many of their islands went underwater. That was some 70,000 years ago. They joined genetic material from a fish and dolphins and themselves. It took quite a while, but the mer people emerged from that. And also they were able to develop gills for themselves. I'm talking about the people from Atlantis now. And there were two different races living there, and one of them went underwater. The one looking like you and me with gills in their necks, but they were taller and they became the mer people. Go look in the evidence for this yourself. There is out there. You can find some of it on the internet and also in my website. Can we live without food? It really looks like it. Many of us have heard about sun gazing. Well, I have become a sun gazer. Right there in the word, we gaze at the sun for a short and gradually increasing period of time every day, starting with no more than 10 seconds per day, and then daily increasing it by 10 seconds until we get up to 45 minutes. But only within an hour of the sun above the horizon, and not when the sun is higher in the sky. Because if you do that, you will destroy your eyesight. After a year, you may not need to continue this practice as long as you remain grounded to the earth for at least a short time during the day. If you like gardening, that's a good time to do it. The electromagnetism we ultimately gain and will be able to maintain will nourish our glands, our organs, and our beings, much the same as the electromagnetism that we previously always received from plants. That is actually there because they absorb the sunlight. We're just learning to receive more directly, while many have expressed a gradual shift in desire for food, lessening, or they may not even want or need food altogether. Of course, it is your choice. I personally enjoy to eat some, and I'm going to do that. Please remember, I'm not a doctor. Whatever I say, remember, check with your physician and check the medical records first. There are some things that you can read that supports this. And never start learning from anybody that at least not done it for at least a year. And don't start making changes in your routine, the health routine, without checking with your physician or a healthcare professional. There is a man named Hira Ratan Manek. He is from India. He's living in the United States now, but he travels back and forth. He has not eaten any food to speak of for years. Since 1995, he continued to live only on the energy from the sun. And he drank water, of course, and he had some salts, and occasionally for hospitality and social events and stuff, he drank tea and coffee, and an occasional glass of buttermilk. During the year 2000 and 2001, he did a 411-day fast, Ahmedabad, India. It was directed by an international team of 21 medical doctors and scientists led by Dr. Sudhir Shah, acting president of the Indian Medical Association at the time. He was part of the team. They observed him basically 24/7 for 411 days. And Hira, he did not eat, and it was written up in medical journals in several countries, including India. The scientists and doctor, they have agreed that hunger is being reduced, if not totally eliminated, by sun gazing, due to the complexity of the various brain functions. They did not elaborate too much on that, but it is there. Here I was invited to Thomas Jefferson University in the United States, that's in Pennsylvania, to do another fast. And he did 130 days when he was observed 24/7. This science or medical team wanted to observe and examine his retina, and they found it was perfectly healthy. They also observed the brain by Dr. George C. Brenard, the leading authority on the pineal gland. They found that the gray cells in Hira's brain are regenerating much faster than what is commonly done for other people. And all he does is to gaze at the sun, drink water, take salts and minerals, occasional tea and coffee, and a rare glass of buttermilk. And there is perhaps now thousands of people around the globe doing this. And a lot of them have gotten to the point where they no longer eat food at all. But remember, do not even think about starting this unless you have really researched it. And you find someone that has done it for a year, because it can very easily destroy your eyesight if you do not do it right. So do not do this when the sun is high in the sky. It can only be done when the sun is just close to the horizon or within an hour of being at the horizon. And we only start out at 10 seconds at a time and keep building on that. So this needs to be studied very thoroughly before you even start thinking about doing something like this. The experience we get is phenomenal. You feel the energy flow through your body. You feel like you are one with the universe. And then you start having some flashes of insight, and some amazing things can happen. Some of the things I have talked about is dangerous information. Some people have disappeared, or some has what we call being suicided for trying to expose this information. Now, I don't plan on anything like that happening. I don't do suicide. Few people have had more to live for than me, and I plan to be around for a while. So remember, I'm not a doctor, so nothing I tell you should be considered medical advice. I'm just reporting on what I read in medical journals and medical research papers. Staying healthy can be very tricky. When you buy pretend food full of chemicals, poisons, and neurotoxins at the grocery store, when the water we drink have one of the most toxic substances on earth in it, fluoride. Many are working 2 or 3 jobs and loaded down with stress. So the immune system is less than half of what it could be. Are you filtering or purifying the water that you drink? Think about that. We know the human body is a self-correcting machine. And if it is given the raw material, it will do that. The problem is almost none of us give the body what it needs. Good health is no accident. It has to be studied, coaxed, loved, and practiced every day, and it is our responsibility to do it. Here is something you need to know. In 1931, Dr. Otto Warburg received the Nobel Prize for discovering that no virus or bacteria can live in a heavy oxygenated environment. When we breathe, we pull air and oxygen into our lungs. That goes into the air sacs and transferred into the blood. And from there it goes everywhere in the body. The problem is that the air does not have enough oxygen anymore in it to help us stay healthy. Normally, air would have some 20, 22, 21% oxygen. Air samples in Tokyo, China, and California have been measured of oxygen down to 5%. a quarter. What I do is something different. Several decades ago, my martial art master told me, if you do this one thing, you will never be sick. I've done this one thing very often, if not every day or two. And I've never really been sick. It is based on the principle that when you flood the blood with oxygen, it gets everywhere in the body and kills the virus and anaerobic bacteria. So I sit down and I hyperventilate for 3 to 5 minutes. I get dizzy, and that tells me the blood is oxygenated. And that blood goes everywhere in the body, kills virus and bacteria, and keep me healthy. There's only one problem with this, and that is that it is free. The pharmaceutical companies cannot make any money on it, so you will never hear it from them. Just go to the Nobel Committee's website again, go to 1931, read the medical submissions, and you will know. Normally, 80% of the food is raw, uncooked food. What happens to the food when you cook it? You kill it, obviously. What would happen to you if you put you in a pot and turn up the heat? It would kill you. When you cook the food, you kill all the enzymes. Enzymes are so important for the body to function and rebuild itself and stay healthy. And I like to introduce the next segment of this documentary. It is by Diana Seraphim. She is an incredible lady. She understands 6 languages. She is my co-host on the radio show, and she is a master of the mind. In years past, her health was failing. She was very ill, but she will explain how she thought herself well. Something that everybody can do.
15 years ago, I came to Germany from Romania after a broken marriage, only with my 3-year-old daughter, with no support at all. I was very broken at all levels. I was suffering from mental disorders. I was depressed, agoraphobic, and bulimic, and I was also obese. I had manifested also physical diseases in my body that, according to the allopathic doctors, could be healed only by surgery. I was supposed to do a hysterectomy, that means to remove the womb. I was supposed to remove my gallbladder, and also my joints and my bones were so damaged that I could barely walk, so I needed an injection every day in order to walk. I was overwhelmed with all kinds of pains, and I did all kinds of allopathic treatments, and I swallowed all kinds of medicine you can imagine. But I was every day worse. So the worse it was that my little daughter was suffering also at that time from an autoimmune disease called polymyositis that is paralyzing the muscles in the whole body, and she was supposed to end up in a wheelchair for the rest of her life. So as all this became too much for me, I started to research on my own about how can I heal myself. And I started by researching about neuroscience and reading all the books from Dr. Joe Dispenza and seeing all his videos, and also about epigenetics with Dr. Bruce Lipton. I continued by research everything that the science revealed about how can we heal ourselves by thought alone, by changing the brain, by changing the mind, by changing our thoughts. And finally understood that yes, if I change my thoughts, I can change my brain, and I can heal my body, and I can heal my life. So I started to apply everything that I learned and to use the knowledge that I gained. And very soon, all my diseases were completely healed. Also, the mental disorders were gone, and automatically my body was in harmony because I removed my inner conflicts by changing my thoughts. So I started to lose weight without needing to do something like in the past, diets or whatever, that never worked for me. And soon I healed myself and I healed my life by thought alone, only by my knowledge. And amazingly, as I started to do all this, also the disease from my daughter went away, simply disappeared, because I changed my mind. The doctors didn't want to believe that her disease is no more there. And they repeated the analysis, the blood analysis, but they didn't find anything anymore. And yes, we can change ourselves by thought alone. And I strongly believe that every one of us can do that, because the real healing power is inside us. And as Dr. Eric Pearl used to say, the best healer in the whole world is the person looking back at you from the mirror.
Does prayer work? Prayer is a form of meditation and manifestation. It is the same thing, but most people are using the wrong language. In other words, we're not doing it right. Once we think of something we'd like to have happen in our future, and by using the right language we summon something that we are already part of. Where does this request for manifestation go? Does it stay in the physical? No. Into a higher vibratory existence, spiritual existence, if you may. The physical is only an artificially created sensation for the mind to interpret and for it to have experiences. Prayers are sent into the spiritual existence, the quantum, all-encompassing, self-aware universal consciousness, where the language is not English, German, Romanian, Bulgarian, Norwegian, Chinese, or any earth language. It is a language of emotion, intention, vivid, colorful pictures, love, gratitude, and things like that. It is a language of the mind, not a language of the voice box. We should learn from history. In fact, Moses, he wrote 12 books. Some of them at least were attributed to him. I have 10 of them. I understand why the church doesn't want you to read this. I believe it is in the 9th book where he explains how to pray and get results every time. 1. Do not flaunt or express your prayers among people who mock you. 2. Go in your chamber. In other words, be alone, or go and not be around other people. 3. Know what you want. 4. See it in your heart. And we've got to remember, back then, the word for heart and mind was the same word. And this means visualizing it. See it in your heart. See it in your mind. 5. Speak it aloud with emotions so the tears flow. You see, emotion is the carrier of thought. 6. Know it is yours. In other words, don't waffle. If you can't make up your mind what you want, how can anybody else? 7. Leave it to God. To be effective at manifesting, we should consider certain things. Manifesting is based on universal law. Don't change the rules. Manifesting is not a getting thing, it's a giving thing. The universe is a giving thing. It is not selfish. Never manifest for yourself only. That is selfish. Put other people in it to enjoy what you are asking for. And it should be at least 3 people. And think big. I'll guarantee you nobody knows how to think big enough. Feel the love for what you are asking and the people you are enjoying it with. Visualize in vivid color what you're asking for. And do not be a beggar. After you're done, believe it is done, and you already have it. Start acting and feeling as you already have it. Between manifestation sessions, live it in the future. Go and visit it. Go back and forth to it. Put more detail and color, love, emotion into it, just as you already have it. Feel the emotion and excitement of the other people enjoying it with you. Be focused on your intention of doing what you can to help make it happen. Put some effort behind your thoughts and manifestation you are getting from it. Feel the gratitude and the thankfulness for having it, even before you have it. Does the spiritual body have substance? There is some evidence saying just that. In 1901, Dr. Duncan McDougall, he claimed to have proven the existence of the soul. He did experiments where he placed the bed of dying people on scales and measured the weight of the patient before and right after the moment of death. He did this 6 times with 6 different patients. All of them showed an immediate loss of weight of 21 grams at the moment of death or slightly after. Something happened there. What he did not understand at the time was that he did not prove the weight of the soul, which is entirely consciousness and weightless. He did prove that there was a substance attached to the physical body that left, and this substance is released from the body at the moment of death, or slightly thereafter. This substance is the astral vehicle, the astral body, if you want to call it that. Actually, the astral body does not have weight because of physical substance either, but it has a downwards attraction to the mass of Earth because of its vibration of the rate within the frequency of gravity. Science will find that someday. Some people, including myself, have actually seen this gray substance leaving the body shortly after the death of a person. It is very often that people can see it. Dr. McDougall, he wrote a paper on this. What is this thing we call death anyway? I would say there is no such thing as death. There is only change. Like we walk into another room, another dimension. When someone dies, what we call, they do not go away, they go home. This life we think we are living is not our home. This mind-created universe has many levels of existence and many dimensions. We think we exist in just one of them. No, that's not true. We are multidimensionals. We were all born into this experience for a reason and to accomplish and experience certain things. When that is done, we leave. We graduate. Of course, the people we live with and who love and care for us may not understand this, and they feel the loss of companionship and they grieve for that. We actually do not grieve for the ones that transitioned, we grieve for ourselves. It's a selfish thing, but very natural. Even if we know they're okay and very well taken care of on the other side, we still grieve. It is rooted in love, so it's a good thing. We cared for our friendship and companionship with these people that go home. So nothing dies. The spark of life, the real you, never dies. The hologram you are existing in here in the physical will be terminated because it is nothing in the first place, though it has to subscribe to the physical laws of physics, which leave something behind because it's still within the laws of physics. It is only a mind-created illusion from a spiritual point of view. A movie and you're the star in it, remember? So, we're only sent here to go to school, learn and grow. So do not feel sorry for the ones that graduate. You will join them someday and you will meet again.